my talk is titled, Now What? Not now what? You know, it's more anticipatory, not from the, right? So now what? So we've come to church, we've gone to some classes, we've seen some movies, we think we understand what spiritual principle is, right? Yet when we're out in the world and somebody says unity, I don't really know anything about unity. Can you tell me? Anybody know the 5 basic unity principles and can say them? That's okay. I know a few people. Raise your hand confidently. I'm not going to ask you to come up and prove it, so that's all right. That's all right. Yeah. You can raise your hands now, more of you, because you know I'm not, yeah. Well, you will know it by the time I get finished, okay? So we call basic unity principles principle because it's immutable. They don't change. Whether you consciously apply the principles or whether you haphazardly just deal with the consequences. The principle does not change. It's what the foundation is. In the dictionary, the Merriam-Webster definition of a principle is a moral rule or belief that helps you know what is right and wrong and that influences your actions. A basic truth or theory, an idea that forms the basis of something, a law or fact of nature that explains how something works and why something happens. This is exactly what our basic principles teach us, right? If you've read Lessons in Truth by Emily Cady, anybody? Read it a couple of times. Every time you read it, it's the same material every time, but you get a different understanding of it because it is truth. And if you're new here, if you want to pick up a book, it's a really good book to get. But I'm giving you a crash course. Those of you, I know this one gentleman raised his hand, but if those of you, a lot of you have been coming here for decades, right? Anybody here more than 20 years? Yeah, a lot of you. More than 10, 5. So a lot of people committed to truth principles, right? We understand, we know they work. But when it comes down to it, we can't always express how we know it works. But until you work them in your life, it's hard to explain. It has to be a personal journey. Right, so I'm going to give you a little Cliff Notes way. I was mentioning Lessons in Truth. I was going to say to you, Emily Cady puts it really well. She says, and I'm paraphrasing because she uses her century-old languaging, and I'm just going to say, she says, you can learn all the spiritual truth and you can spit it out and share it, but until you put it into action, you don't know truth, right? You have to live it and experience it. So that's the important thing. So I'm going to give you a little bitty thing. I've done it before. I've shared it with you before. But this is a real easy way to remember. I'm using fingers because this helps to kind of get it in your head, right? Those teachers that know you have more than one way to learn. If you get this little ditty down, then you'll be able to share with people. Also, there's a little card that we gave out in the first service, but the bookstore, I don't know if we ran out of them or not, but the bookstore has this little bitty wallet card that if you want to drop by and get one of those that has the 5 principles on it in case you ever want to pull it out. But it's really helpful just to talk about it, right? So we're going to go over that today. So say this with me. I'll share it with you, and then you can repeat it with me. God is, I am, I think, I pray, I do. Okay? Do it with me. God is, I am, I think, I pray, I do. God is, I am, I think, I pray, I do. Right? So if you get that, God is, I am, I think, I pray, I do, then when someone asks you, you can go, yeah, God is, blah, 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 and you can remember. So I'm going to explain to you today how those principles work and how they come together, okay? So first of all, we were going to share, can we put the one power and one present statement up? Anne was so excited she kind of skipped over it, but I want to use it because we say this every week, right? So let's say it now. I'm not trying to embarrass you. We didn't say it. But it's my point is that we do say this every week, but we just say it. I want you to own it with me, right? So say this. There is only one power and one presence active in my life and in the universe, God, the good, omnipotent. There is only good. This is the first principle. God is absolute good. Now, we struggle with language about God because God is not a person or a thing, right? God never really said anything, right? People say, oh, well, God said. Well, God doesn't have a mouth, you know? God is not, we anthropomorphize, and we say that's putting human characteristics to something that is not human. God is not a human. God is not a thing, right? God is the love that is in the universe. Individually, we can each express love, but the love, the universal love that's in the universe is God. God is not loving, right? God is not doing the love. God is love, right? So God is absolute good all the time present, all the time. So whatever you're dealing with on any given day, it might be frustrating you, but it's not the devil. Shh, don't tell anybody. But there is no devil. There's no such thing. That's not what we believe. We believe in absolute good, right? But if you could think of it this way, you go, well, what about when bad things happen, right? Okay, things do happen, but like a light, you know, if a lamp is showing, a shadow in and of itself is nothing but the absence of the light, right? So if you have a lamp on and you put your hand there, there's a shadow, but the shadow is nothing. It's not a thing on its own. You pull your hand away and the light is still shining. Even when you're blocking it, the light is still shining, right? So there's always good in every situation. And God is absolute good. And when you remember that, you can take whatever's going on in your life and you can look at it from that perspective of truth. If there's absolute good in this situation, where is it for me, right? You can take yourself and you can change your perspective on anything that's going on in your life by looking at it from the standpoint of, if there's only good in the world, absolute good, where is it for me? And answer your own question, because it's not for somebody to tell you where is your good in any situation, right? We don't want to do that to one another. We sometimes try so hard to help one another that we try to help them get to that perspective of seeing the good. But this is work you have to do for yourself, right? It's not something you can help someone else do. You can share your personal experiences, and by that, maybe someone will say, I see, I get it. But if you're not talking about yourself, you don't need to impose we call it metaphysical malpractice, right? When you're telling someone, well, you're good in this situation, or your thoughts created, those are things we believe, but you own that for yourself, right? Don't apply that to other people. You can hold truth with someone, you can believe good for them, right? But that's where we come from with that one. So God is absolute good, everywhere present, right? One power, one presence, it's all-knowing, and we follow the teachings of Jesus, right? And Jesus referred to God as Father, and we still follow through with that, and a lot of times we say He, but that's separation, right? We're separating ourselves. That's not the languaging that actually serves the consciousness of God is absolute good in all things. And the second principle, it's God is, I am, right? I am. I am fully an expression of God. God is all that I am. I'm not all that God is, but God is all that I am. So someone said to me, one of the smaller churches I've spoken to, they said, yeah, but you sound like you're saying you're God. And I said, yeah, that's what I said. And so are you, right? We call that the Christ within, right? That's just another way of saying it. But even when Ed was here, he kind of said, I don't like that spark of divinity or Christ within, because that's still a form of separation if we're saying it's hidden in there somewhere, right? It is who we are. But through our choices, through our activity, we demonstrate what we truly believe, right? So God is, I am. Those are fundamental. Now, the I am part is kind of tough for us, right? Because I am that, that's a lot to hold, right? I am fully an expression of God, myself. Ooh. Then I don't get to make some of those choices I like to make that sometimes have bad consequences, right? I don't get to keep making those choices, or I have to own responsibility for the consequences. People have also often said to me, you're blaming us for the way our life is. I'm not blaming anything. I'm trying to share with you that your consequences of choices and behaviors and words are the life you're living now, right? If you don't like it, I'm empowering you to change it. Everything in your life can be changed through changing your consciousness, right? That's the power. That's what Jesus said, these things and even more so shall you do, right? Jesus said, it's not me, you're just as much, all of this as I am. So, but he worked on his consciousness, right? He walked with people who appeared on the outside to be less than him. He didn't separate himself from others because of their poverty or their beliefs or whatever other their infirmities. He went in to experience that with them. He was one with others. And that's the truth of who we are, right? Because collectively, if God is absolute good and we're each a part of God, collectively, we're all God, right? So collectively, we are the good. We're the potential for good in the universe. But it's not just us in this room. It's the men and the women who are in prisons as well. People who've made very serious mistakes. They're equally 100% the same as we are in potential, in pure potential. It's the expression where they've maybe taken a turn off the path a little bit, right? Which we all do that too. Come on, admit it. We have our little things that we hold on to that is maybe not the highest and best expression of who we are, right? So think of it this way. In Eric Butterworth's book, Discover the Power Within, you've read it? Yes? Multiple times, right? Again, it's truth principle. So every time you read it with your fresh eyes, right? You read it a few years ago, you were in a different place then. Read it again, and you see a whole new book. I use different colors, markers, and pens, and it's like a mosaic. Because one time oh wow, that really hit me, and then the next time it's like, I see that I marked that, but wow, this is the comment that really is hitting me right now. And you get it at another level because as you begin to act on truth that you know, your consciousness changes, right? You shift. I don't want to say higher. It's just broader, bigger, more expansive in your understanding of who you are in this world changes, right? So, I was going to say, sorry, I keep bringing up a book and then I forget to tell you about what I'm referring to in the book. So Butterworth says, think of God like the ocean, right? And the ocean is vast, and you might take a container and take some of that ocean out, but it's still every bit of the ocean, right? And you pour it back in, and it's equally parts of it's the ocean. That's how we are in our container, right? God is the ocean, and we are the container. So we still have all that is God within us at all times. So we have that, and it's the empowerment is sometimes overwhelming, right? Because we actually do have the power to create our lives. So God is, I am, I think. This is where the rubber hits the road. right? Our thoughts. So I'll just read specifically what that one, how it's worded. Human beings create their experiences by the activity of their mind. Everything in the manifest realm has its beginnings in thought. So your life today is a product of what you expected it to be, right? You thought certain things, you held certain ideals, you had certain expectations, and you have created, right? So again, people sometimes say, but you're blaming us. There's no blame, right? We have been who we are, and we've done the best that we can with what we've known up to this point, right? So there's no blame, but look at your experiences and say, if I created this by the power of my thoughts and my words and my deeds and my actions, I can start right this moment creating something I want differently, right? You don't have to name it bad. You don't have to say, personally, I married a sociopath when I got married. I'm not joking. I literally did. And I didn't know it right away, obviously. But I don't find marriage or love or whatever distasteful because I made one mistake, right? I had gotten out of college, I had a good job, I bought my own home. I was like, yeah, I'm checking my boxes, right? Yeah, married a handsome man, yep. Uh-oh. Behind the covers, woo, it was a mess. So I had to say, look, that was not a good choice, right? And it was a very humbling experience, right? Because I was checking my boxes, right? I had the plan, there were what Carolyn read about, you've got your plan all set up, but you've got to let go of that sometimes, right? You've got to sometimes let go of what that plan is and live and be who you are. So for me to be humbled, okay, I've accomplished all these things, and then this is the choice I made. From what consciousness did I make that choice, right? Luckily, as I was going through a divorce, I came to Dallas, Texas, and came to this church. So I was able to reflect and to look at what choices I had made that took me into that situation, right? I didn't blame him. He is who he is, right? He's just being himself. It wasn't his fault. I made that choice, right? I'm only using that example because I think you can relate, right? Not that you married a sociopath, but not, husbands and wives, come on, stop looking at each other out of the corner of your eye. But we all make mistakes, right? And sometimes they're big ones like that, and sometimes they're just small ones of being unkind or not supportive or whatever. But they're not true to who we want to be and how we want to express ourselves in the world, right? So what we have to understand is the thoughts that we hold are creative. They have creative energy, right? Every thought and every word, and this is the easiest way for me to remember it, every thought and every word is a prayer, right? So if you're a particularly sarcastic person, and here's what I connect with the whole marriage thing is I used to always say, because I didn't get married till I was 35, and people would say, oh, you've never been married? Well, you seem okay, you look all right. They're kind of asking you, what's going on with you? But you know what I would say? I would say, well, if I would have married anybody I'd dated before, I would be divorced by now. So I saved myself the trouble. What was I saying to the universe? Marriage equals divorce. Marriage equals divorce. Marriage equals divorce. I said it over and over for years. So what did I do? I married someone I had to divorce immediately, right? So, it is that clear to me that I created that out of not consciousness, out of not the truth of who I was, right? Because I wasn't connected with my truth at that time. So I was just checking my boxes. I was living on the surface. And once I got down inside and started to understand, all kinds of things changed. My career changed. I started making a whole bunch more money because I understood the blocks that I put in place by my own thoughts. Not active thoughts, right? But all those things, we have those things. We have experiences, we have our family of origin, we have a lot of different, we have race consciousness, we have a lot of things that help mold what's in our mind, right? But the fact is, those things can be true, and we can still take dominion over our thoughts. I was talking, Miss Billy used to do Course in Miracles, right? So when a thought comes in your mind, Course in Miracles says you can apply love or you can apply fear, right? So if we just take an example of like Monday morning, we're going to start a new job, right? So everybody think about this. I'm going to start a new job Monday morning. So you can, with love, focus on the opportunities to learn and to bring your gifts to this new opportunity and look forward to making new friends and colleagues. Or out of fear, you can worry that your boss is going to be just like the other one. You can worry that, oh my gosh, they're not going to let me do what I need to do. And you can create with your thoughts, even if you never even say that. You bring that anxiety into a situation. A friend of mine said years ago when we were talking about something, and I've had some anxiety issues over the years, and she said, what if we name it anticipation? So you take that same thing that fear creates anxiety, and you move it to a focus of love and call it anticipation, right? You can do this, right? You have this choice. You can change your life by that simple little maneuver, right? And even you have to, in your consciousness, if you're hanging out with friends and somebody likes to meet at the water cooler and you need to choose to do something else with your time, right? Don't allow yourself to get sucked into gossip and negativity and looking for the bad in every situation. You have to take responsibility for what you allow to come into your mind, into your thoughts. And then responsibility, especially for what comes out of your mouth, right? Because it's powerful. It's creative energy. And the more passion you have, the more it ignites that energy, that creative force. Anybody ever read The Isaiah Effect by Greg Braden? Yeah, some of you. So he has this story in there where he's going around he's asked different people around the world who have different religious belief systems, how do you pray? May I come and watch you pray? Because he thought as a scientist he would learn something. So he went with this Native American gentleman, and they had had a dry spell, and he said, I'm going to go and pray for rain tomorrow. And Braden's thinking, oh, this will be an experience, right? He's thinking Native American, rain, woo, woo, woo. Dancing, all that traditional rain dance. So he got up early in the morning and went out into the country with this guy, and he said, we're going to an area where the veil is the thinnest between the worlds. And so he stepped out and he stood in this certain spot and he closed his eyes and he got really quiet, and Braden was watching. And then he said, okay, are you ready? You want to go get some breakfast? And he goes, I thought you were going to pray. And he said, I did. And he's like, but I didn't see anything, didn't do anything. You didn't sing anything, you didn't dance anything. And the Native American said, no, I stood here in this spot where I'm most connected with ancestors, and I experienced rain in my mind, right? He felt the mud under his toes, and he said he smelled the way that the earth smells when that rain hits that dry soil. And he heard the experience of it. And Braden says, he can't say that that's exactly why, but thunderstorms came not long after that. So what he was demonstrating is that experience of a prayer, right? So let's be conscious of when we're walking around, we're praying. And the universe is saying, yes, yes. So if you're complaining and you're upset and you're this, that, and the other, and nobody's fair to me, and da-da-da-da, the universe is just going to agree with you. So take responsibility and shut that off, right? So your thoughts create every thought and every word. So God is, I am, I think, I pray. So this is just fundamental unity principle, right? We talk about affirmative prayer. We pray in the now, as Jesus taught, claiming your good. Claim that it is done, right? Pray not off in the future. Pray claiming now it is done. Have faith in the first principle and the second principle. And, understand that God is absolute good, that you are a part of that. And taking responsibility for your thoughts and words, pray affirmatively. Don't pray to a separate entity, separate from yourself. Pray from that understanding, that knowledge of the truth of who you are. Pray claiming you're good. It feels uncomfortable at first, sometimes, because we don't have always that highest view of ourselves, right? But if you follow the second principle and you really work to get your arms and your mind around the fact that you are that divine expression of God the good, the absolute good, then when you start praying affirmatively, you activate that, right? But you have to pray with the same passion that you complain, right? And more so, because you have to cancel out your complaining. So I was one time down in Cedar Hill, and these ladies came up afterwards, and they said they had a mastermind group. And they said, we first got together, all these things were happening, we were all supporting each other in prayer, and now it seems like we've just gotten stuck, and nothing's happening anymore. And I said, well, tell me what you were doing in the beginning. And then I said, okay, now tell me what you do now. Well, now they were just kind of running in, making time, squeezing it in, going through the process. So in the beginning, they were very passionate about it, and it activated, right? But as it went on, then they got a little ho-hum, well, we know it works, so we're just going to get together and just, make it happen. But they lost that intention. They lost that knowing, that understanding, that commitment to the process. It's a prayer process if you don't know masterminding. It's just a way to get together and support one another in prayer. But just remember, you're always praying. There's never a time when you're not praying with your thoughts and your words. So finally, the fifth principle is I do. God is, I am, I think, I pray, I do. And back around to Emily Cady, right? She said, you can understand it. You can even be able to recite it to others, which that's what we're focusing on today. But when the rubber hits the road, is the doing, right? As the Quakers say, pray and move your feet. Live your truth, right? You understand how it works. Take dominion over your thoughts and your words. Pray affirmatively. Deny the power of the circumstances over you. Use the process, right? Continue to read. Pray and meditate, right? Praying, again, it's hard not to put these human characteristics on what we believe in God, because that is our language, right? But when you're praying affirmatively, you're claiming you're good. When you're denying, you're just denying the power of other things and circumstances over you. The combination of the two is a really powerful approach to getting your prayers met, right? Because you say, okay, I see. Like sometimes people like to bash Pollyanna. Everybody know the story about Pollyanna. She was a little girl. She was very happy. Her parents were missionaries, and her parents passed away, and she went to live with an aunt. And the aunt was very crabby and negative, and everybody around her was all crabby and negative and uptight. And Pollyanna just kind of said, but I think this, and I see that. And she always was calling out the good. And everybody was very dismissive and didn't like her. But then they started looking for the good, and it spread. And people say, Pollyanna, you're so Pollyanna. Say, yeah, thank you, right? because she was a master metaphysician, right? Pollyanna knew she was looking for the good. She didn't say, no, my aunt's not a crabby old lady. She said, but I like these things about her, right? And, even but, take that word out of your vocabulary. And I like these things, right? Here's what I see. Here is the good I acknowledge, right? So, pray and move your feet. God is, I am, I think, I pray, I do. Put the principles into action in your life. And this is all about all these choices that you're making for what you think, what you say, what you do, how you're experiencing people in your life. Now, sometimes you can't just disconnect yourself from people who are bringing you down, right? My mother was the biggest, I'll worry about everything. And I had to tell her one time, going back to the whole divorce thing, I just couldn't handle one more thing. And she would start telling me, well, you know, Scott was doing this, and Michael did that, and Kim did that. And I just had to say, please stop. I can't handle another thing. And I can't help all those people that you're telling me their problems. So please tell me something good. And she was like, oh, I gotta go. I think something's on the stove. You know, she had to get off the phone really fast. But the next time I talked to her, because I talked to her every week and sometimes multiple times a week, the next time she had one good thing. She was out over here in her pocket, ready to, just in case I asked her. I did, of course. And then the next time she had more and more and more and more, where she has actually become a more positive person. She really has, over time. She has become a more positive person. She's 88 years old. And now she tells me sometimes, and she faces a lot of challenges because she's 88, she has health things and did that. But she goes into them so much more positively, and she's turned herself around from some medical challenges by looking for the more positive approach to it. So she's transformed herself. I didn't do that, right? I just invited her to communicate with me in a certain way. She decided she liked it. And she now, when someone new moves in, they're usually a little upset. And she's told me one day, this lady, Juanita, who used to be a neighbor, every time I see her, she's complaining. And I said, so just don't get in there with her, right? Redirect her attention. Ask her if she changed her hair. Tell her you like her shoes, Just cut her off before she gets all the way down that road. And I said, you can't be inauthentic about that, right? You can't say, oh, your hair looks good if it's like this. Because people know when they look like that, because I have that hair, so it will happen. So you have to be truthful about it, right? But you can redirect. You can protect your consciousness, right? Let's go back to a definition. So consciousness, the condition of being conscious, normal state of being awake and able to understand what is happening around you, a person's thought and mind. So understanding the first principle that God is absolute good, understanding that you are an expression of that absolute good, knowing that you can think and create, right? You can pray to get more connected, and you can actually take steps. All of these things shift your consciousness, right? You're taking responsibility. You broaden your perspective of who you are in the world by embracing the truth of your being. And you open your own mind and your own consciousness to connect more deeply. And you transform your own life. Nobody else can do that for you. We're in a ministerial call right now looking for a new senior minister, but that senior minister is not going to dictate the consciousness of this church. You all do. And as we've had ministers come back in, some of them left a little bit stressed out for different reasons, for whatever reason they are no longer here, but when they've come back, they've experienced closure. They've experienced the love of, everybody has their favorite of the various ones, but the point of them coming back is not to say, oh yeah, well, I never liked him for this, and he never said hi to me for that, and let's stop that, right? Let's not focus on what we didn't like about the ones that come back and speak to us. They care enough to come back and talk to us again. Let's remember the positive. Let's hold ourselves accountable. Hold ourselves accountable for the consciousness of this church. Everybody in this room, right? We are all accountable. That's why you've been invited to join in the prayer. But it's everything you say and do about this upcoming process is part of your consciousness, right? So first, it's your life. Then it's you as a part of a community. And it's you as a part of the world, right? We all actually influence the world in which we live, right? You can pray, you can hold higher thoughts for different areas of the world. It works, it helps. Never feel like you're not a part of something bigger and more important. And I've just laid out to you through the principles how that's true. So pray and meditate, right? Here's a few little things that you can do. Right now, you can start shifting. If you're not happy with something in your life, you can start shifting. Pray and meditate. Take time. Even if it's just when somebody asks for prayer on Facebook, take a second and do that. Don't just write praying. Yeah, I know. I hear some guilty laughter. Take a moment and consciously do it, right? Connect yourself with that higher consciousness of the person who's asking for your help. Meditate. However you want to do it. You want to take your shoes off and walk on the grass in the backyard? Unless you are allergic, don't do that. At the sound of the word grass makes her sneeze. But get out there and connect yourself with whatever it is that makes you feel connected to something greater. Read something inspiring every day. I recommend the Daily Word. You heard how perfectly it gives you a little statement. It gives you a thought for the day. It supports it with a Bible verse. But whatever kind of teacher that you like to read from, get a daily and just get up in the morning, first thing, take responsibility. I'm going to make myself a better day, right? Make that choice. I have a niece who has a little boy, and when he was 5, he's 19 now, but when he was, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4, he didn't want to go to school one day, K or pre-K, one of those early ones, because he was sure that when he went to school, his banana was going to fall from the tree. I know. I say, what? So they got smiley faces every day, but in this particular month, in any particular month, if you got 3 not smiley faces, I don't know if they were really frowns, but they weren't necessarily smiley faces, or maybe you just got an X. But if you got 3 in that time frame, your banana fell from the tree. And he just did not want to go to school because he had 2 X's already for that month. And she said to him when he was just a little boy, okay, I'm going to go make your lunch, and when I come back, you tell me what kind of day you're going to have, because you get to choose. So if you choose your banana's going to fall from the tree, it's going to fall from the tree. And if you decide it's not going to, you're going to have a good day. So she came back later, and he said, I'm going to have a good day. But she taught him how to start his day and how empowered he was to choose the kind of day he was going to have. So this is something everybody's already done before. Make a gratitude list. But here's the deal. Do it this way for a while. Write 3 things each day. But they can't be the 3 things you've already written down any of the days before. So you'll start with your immediate environment, and then you'll expand beyond, right? And then perform random acts of kindness. I know all of you find those opportunities. Look for them. Intentionally look for them. And look for the good in everyone else, and, catch yourself and be responsible. And the final one I just like to recommend is forgiveness, right? First, we forgive ourselves from whatever mistakes we've made that have caused harm to ourselves or others. But we have to love ourselves and forgive ourselves before we can forgive others. I saw an Indian teacher last weekend. His name is Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, and he said he gave some 5 things to keep in mind. Well, one was don't take someone else's mistake. Don't read intention into someone else's mistake, right? So if someone's done something and it's affected you, don't read into it that they did it intentionally to harm you. And one of my friends says, well, that's kind of like saying, not my problem. But it's not. It's higher than that. It's with compassion, I see that they made a mistake, and just because I'm hurt, I don't look for it to be intentional against me. So it can take you to forgiveness a lot faster, right? So those are the few things I want to leave you with today as we reviewed the 5 principles. And I just wanted to wish for you, number 1, challenge you to hold this consciousness for the church, and to wish for you that you get in touch with the truth of who you are. Because I see in you the beauty and the truth of that Christ within. Thank you. God bless.